What's going on, folks? Adrian here. Welcome back to the channel. I've been on the private beta for The Division 2, another looter shooter, and I'll share some brief thoughts about my experiences so far in this preview. Those of you who've been playing it, hey, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. What is The Division 2 for starters? I'm aware most of us here are MMORPG players, and Division 2 doesn't exactly fit in that mold. Simply put, it's an online open-world action shooter RPG that you can play solo or with up to 3 other players in a collapsing and fractured Washington, D.C. setting. The story here is that a crippling virus is ravaging the world, and us players are part of a civilian sleeper unit, the Division, that has been activated, and as the last line of defense, we're here to fight for and protect the peoples against threats to humanity, like from gangs and looters and other party poopers. So having never played the first game, I jumped into this blind, which is always the fun thing to do, and I gotta say I'm quite impressed by the game overall, from what there is here in the private beta. Let's get down to the gameplay, and you start by creating a character to which customization options is limited for the beta, and you're brought into this post-disaster Washington, D.C. Controls are easy enough if you've ever played a shooter game of any sort, and your camera views over the shoulder with ADS, or aiming down sight for guns, and in Division 2, combat is all about taking cover in the heat of a firefight, because standing out in the open will get you killed. Your player character has an in-depth and beefy loadout system, and you've got everything from 2 main gun slots, a secondary firearm slot, a grenade slot, head-to-feet gear and armor slots, and 2 skill slots, which is important, and we'll talk about that soon. Progression is obviously your main juice in the game, and it's all about earning experience points and leveling up your character alongside keeping your arsenal of weaponry and equipment up to date, and preferably of a higher or rarer quality. Every gun, and there's many types of them that you folks will recognize from the real world, has different stats, so obviously some will do more damage in close range at the expense of stability or control, like shotguns. And there's secondary stats too, like crit rating and accuracy, that you can bump up from your armor and gear, like having better kneecap protection or a chest piece or even a holster. It's an easy enough system to grasp, and loot comes easy from just playing the game, and there are rare ones that drops from boss mobs, from chests out in the world, or can be crafted. Speaking of which, the Division 2 has a crafting system that is unlocked early on from the main story, and while you're out and about you'll find crafting materials and loot bags everywhere. For inventory management, you can deconstruct unneeded weapons and gear in your inventory formats as well, and once you've acquired a blueprint for a weapon or a piece of gear, you can then craft it back in your home base, which is the White House, and that's cool. Now back to direct character improvements. There are no class archetypes in the Division 2, but you can tailor your playstyle with learnable skills and perks back at the White House when you level up and accumulate skill points and SHD tech, which is spent on perks. Skills are combat, offensive, or support abilities that you slot in your Q and E hotkeys, and there's a few in the beta that you can get, like deploying automated machine guns that fires at enemies, or seeker mines that locks on a target and blows up when it gets in range. These skills can go on lengthy cooldowns once used, so be smart with them, or make sure to look for gear that decreases skill cooldowns. Perks, on the other hand, are your horizontal progression system in the game, and you can increase inventory size, hold more armor kits, carry more grenades, and things of that sort. These are easy to unlock early on, as SHD tech comes from completing SHD missions or finding its caches in the open world map. You'll also get to tier up existing perks and branch out into different variants of your skills, which will cost more obviously later on. Your settlements and main hub will also have progression. For example, unlocking an NPC that opens up the crafting bench in the White House, or having access to projects and settlements that can reward you with blueprints to craft. I was at first overwhelmed by the sheer amount of things to pursue and learn just to enhance your character, but that's a good thing, I suppose, for the long term. Now let's get to the meat and bones of the game, the content. The Division 2 has a bunch of game modes and activities within its modes, like in its open world play. Once you're out of the tutorial and on the streets of DC, you're pretty much in the open world, and you can see other players running about. Hitting the M key brings up the game's map, and this is key for gameplay as it shows you nearby activities like enemy control points that you can liberate, or safe houses to discover, which you can then quick travel to and restock on ammo, vendor your items, and use the matchmaking tool. I mentioned quick travel, and that's pretty handy as well to quickly get to a group member if you're playing in one, or head back to discovered settlements or the White House quickly. While roaming around, you'll get lots of calls for help too. and these are actual real players that are calling for backup on the map, and you can answer the call, which zones you into their group and their instance of the open world map, which works pretty seamless. So kudos to Ubisoft for a fantastic, functional, and interactive map. At safe houses, the matchmaking feature is also really neat, and you can queue up for random activities just to level and loot, or do a main story or two, and I'm hoping PvP and other raids will be included later on. Let's talk about the main story for a bit, which has an okay narrative, and it's sort of predictable given the circumstances that we're in, but I do appreciate the voice dialogues and the cutscene presentation. Main missions in the beta so far have been fun, like the first one where you're storming a building, getting rid of waves of enemies as you make your way to the top floor, killing the final boss, and saving an NPC for some sweet XP rewards, and of course the loot. While that sounds really ordinary for a shooter game, the grouping dynamics is what made it more enjoyable for me. On the map or in settlements or safe houses, matchmaking isn't the only way to find a group. You can also click on the main mission location on the map itself and look for a group there, which is nice. Once done, everyone can zone into the mission area and let the fun begin. Doing missions solo is perfectly fine, and there's different difficulties you can pick from, like story mode to harder ones to challenge yourself. In groups, the dynamics I find more interesting because more often than not, you can play off what each of you are doing in terms of skill and gear. For example, there's buffing for some skills and other practical combat maneuvers, like if I'm using my M60 machine gun to suppress enemies in cover, my teammates can then flank and get rid of them. There's plenty of ways to play just as long as you're having fun. The same applies really to all other game modes like side missions and control points. Now, the one big draw that the Division 2 has over, let's say, Anthem is with PvP. The game will launch with PvP, and so far I believe there's two modes. The first is a couple of small PvP encounters called Skirmish and Domination. One's a deathmatch and the other is point capture. And the second, more popular mode are Dark Zones, which I'm aware comes from the first game, and it will be Division 2's endgame content for PvP of some sort. Of what I know about it, it's level gated to enter because it's a difficult place to be in, and you'll not only face other players but rogue agents and boss NPCs too, but with that higher risk comes better rewards. And so far I'm hearing a couple of great things about it. Firstly, the Dark Zones, which are these purple areas on the map, will have its own progression system that's separate from the core game mode. You'll earn DZ XP or Dark Zone XP, and that will give you a new set of tiered perks to unlock and play with in the zone itself. Secondly, Dark Zones will feature gear normalization, which means everybody is on equal footing. And I really do like the sound of that, as it comes down to skill and experience and perks within Dark Zone itself. Now, I've yet to do one as I'm still level 6 in the private beta, and you need to be level 7 to access it, and the game keeps going down for maintenance in my time zone whenever I want to play, so hopefully I can cover that on a live stream sometime tomorrow right here on my channel or on Twitch. Overall, I'll say again, I'm pretty impressed with what Ubisoft showed off in this private demo. As for things I wasn't impressed by, I'd say character models are unfortunately one. The setting and the environments are really neat, but I can't say the same for player character models, and no, that's not because of the random Mark Wahlberg character the game made for me. They're just a little stiff, and facial animations and aesthetics are average at best, but not the NPC ones that play a part in the main story, however, as those seem to have gotten a lot more work done on them. Optimization is also good. I'm not getting any sort of issues there, and even with VSync turned off and without a frame rate limit, the game runs perfectly fine on my rig. In other areas, movement can also feel somewhat restrictive, and maybe that's because I've only recently covered Anthem's demo. The Division 2's cover system and vaulting over barriers, climbing ropes, and dodging are alright, but the lack of a native jump button in universal gameplay feels kinda odd. In open world mode and out exploring, parts of the map design on street level will have annoying things you'll encounter, since you can't even do a basic jump or vault over low objects with the control button, but that's really minor. As for isolated beta issues, the disconnects that was happening on the first day did stink as it reset progression and missions, but that has been taken care of. But I gotta say, this has been a pretty damned polished beta experience. I haven't encountered any game-breaking bugs, no hardware issues, no crashes, no oddities, and that's to be commended. So let's wrap this preview up. For final thoughts, I'm surprised. I didn't think I would find anything interesting here, but I'm glad the game proved me wrong. I did have a ton of fun. The sheer depth of what players can do and pursue to accomplish in here I find pretty awesome. Some of them can be repetitive in terms of gameplay and level design for missions, but I'm sure there's still lots more stuff we haven't seen, of course, until the game launches. And I'm obviously unsure how the grind will be in here, among other things, but The Division 2 has convinced me to pre-order the game. Will I regret this? Find out in March 2019. So that's it from me. For those of you that have played The Division 2 private beta, share your thoughts about the game in the comments section below. Pre-order or stay away. Hit the like button for the love of chocolates, and feel free to subscribe to the channel for more vids and get notified on all my latest uploads. Once again, I'm Adrian, and I thank you for watching. Hey folks, thanks so much for watching that video. If you guys want to watch more, you can click the subscribe button at the bottom there, or somewhere over here. And don't forget to hit that bell to get notified on all my latest videos. So I'll see you guys at the next vid. Take care.